Which games are must-bets for Week 9 of the 2023 NFL season? What's going on, Gridiron Gamblers? It's Mitch back here with another week of NFL best bets here on the Bottom Line View. My favorite picks versus the spread for Week 9 of the 2023 NFL season, with the goal of helping you win some money this NFL season. If that sounds good, Gronk spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe for weekly NFL best bets here on the BLV every single Wednesday. Last week, we returned to 500 with a push on the Cleveland Browns. This week, I feel the best in a while. The best I've felt in a while about an NFL card. The last couple of weeks, we've gathered most of our losses, I'm not going to lie. And I've been a little bit cold as of late, and I have to take that and I have to try to turn it around. And I think we're about to get hot once again in Week 9 because I feel pretty good about this card and my 5 best bets. So without further ado, let me know in the comments section below your best bet for Week 9 and allow me to reveal my 5 favorite picks versus the spread for Week 9. Let's begin with my first pick versus the spread, which is kind of a weird one, I'm not going to lie, but it's the Las Vegas Raiders at home -1.5. This number has moved down, and I believe it's because of 2 reasons. The Raiders just fired their coach, so I believe the Raiders, people might think there's distraction in the building, there's less focus on the game, more focus on the future, what's going on, the Raiders are a disaster, all this stuff. But from my experience, the Raiders, or any team for that matter, that fires their coach typically has an initial burst of energy, passion, and just want to that following week or two. And I've seen this before with the Raiders. The Raiders in 2021 fired John Gruden over that fiasco, and they actually got better as a team down the stretch, and they started to win games because they were a closer, tight-knit unit. And I could see that happening again here. Antonio Pierce is taking over as the head coach. He's actually a former New York Giant linebacker, believe it or not. And they're taking on the Giants here. So he could get his first ever win as a head coach versus his former team. It just sounds NFL storybook to me. Antonio Pierce, think of Mike Vrabel, think of Mike Tomlin, think of Dan Campbell. That's the type of personality this guy has. He's very energetic, very tough, very gritty, very old school, no nonsense. And I think players are really going to react to that in comparison to Josh McDaniels. I think Antonio Pierce is much more of a player's coach, and the players will want to go out there and play hard for him, especially his defense at home in week number 9. We have a Raiders defense led by Max Crosby, which I think overall has played pretty admirably, especially in situations on third down, in the red zone. Max Crosby has dominated this NFL calendar, and now he's taking on one of the worst offensive lines in football, one of the worst tackle situations, with both tackles for the Giants being questionable for the game or potentially out for the game. Daniel Jones returns off of an injury. Darren Waller's probably not going to play because of a hamstring injury, so no revenge factor here for the Giants. I believe that the best unit in this game is the Raiders defense at home with their crowd taking on a bad offensive line, and I believe the Raiders defense will dominate. On the other side, I think the Raiders will get a little bit of a boost from Aiden O'Connell, which is another reason the line has moved towards the Giants, because for whatever reason, the sports books believe that Jimmy Garoppolo is good. He's not. He's terrible. He's really bad. And what he has limited the Raiders from is throwing the ball down the field. If you've watched any little inkling of Aiden O'Connell, he can throw the ball down the field. He has great arm strength, and that certainly popped in his first ever action. This isn't his first ever start. He started against the Chargers, actually played decent in that game. He had a couple turnovers, but hey, Jimmy G has turned the ball over consistently this year, so that's not really a concern. He's a big guy, he's got a big arm, and I think Adams will be rejuvenated from that. I think guys like Hunter Renfrow as well will be rejuvenated from losing Josh McDaniels, because I think they had something going on there. And I think the run game will get going a little bit more here because Leonard Williams is gone from the Giants in the middle of that defense. I think it's going to take some time to adjust without him. They don't really know what their defense is going to look without him next to Dexter Lawrence. So I like the Raiders here. I think they still have something to fight for. I think there is some inside the building energy that's going to persist throughout the building. And I feel like the Giants are the opposite. Yeah, they respect Brian Daboll, but like this is a team that traded one of their best players. So I kind of feel like the Giants are in a different mindset here. I like the Raiders at home. I like the Raiders defense playing a bad offensive line. And I like the changes at quarterback and head coach for them to actually get better. So give me the Raiders -1.5 at home. My second pick versus the spread for week number 9. I am taking my New England Patriots again, and I understand it didn't work out last week, although we were close, I will say. We were close. The Dolphins covered at the end of the game, and Mac Jones threw a pick in the red zone, but that's behind us. Anyways, the Patriots -3. I would prefer a 3 here. I've seen some 3.5s pop up. I would still take the Patriots at -3.5, and there's a couple different reasons. So typically with Belichick and Mac Jones, when they're favored, they've won games. Like you look at Mac Jones' record in the NFL, when he's an underdog, he hasn't covered very often and he hasn't won very often. I think there's a reason for that. The Patriots right now, the way they're built and constructed, they're not a team that can come from behind and win because they don't have the receiver talent. Their offense isn't very good. Mac has struggled to really make plays in those scenarios. And when they're a favorite, it's mostly because they're rather at home. They have a better defense that can dominate the opposition. And that's kind of what I see here. The Patriots defense should dominate the Washington offense. Washington has struggled overall to run the ball. I don't think they're going to have a lot of success versus New England. And I think the biggest mismatch in this game is the Patriots pass rush versus the Washington offensive line. We saw New England's defensive line dominate the Bills a couple weeks back. I think that could happen again in this matchup where Sam Howell has taken near a record amount of sacks through half a season. I think that the Patriots are going to get 5 sacks in this game, potentially turnovers. We know that Belichick is really good versus young quarterbacks, dominates those matchups, confuses those quarterbacks, and forces turnovers. I think that will lead to short fields and extra points that we might not foresee for a limited Patriots offense. But on the other side, I think you have to have some feeling of positivity towards the Patriots offense. I actually feel like they've turned a bit of the corner. This unit, they're not great. They don't have a lot of talent. And yes, they lost Kendrick Bourne. But as long as Trent Brown is going to be out there this week, I'd expect them to put 20 at least on the board here against one of the worst pass defenses in football that just lost their 2 edge rushers, Montez Sweat and Chase Young, to trades. There's probably no real energy to get up for this game for Washington as they were in sell mode. The Patriots were not in sell mode, so that means that these players probably won't be, feeling like down on themselves because they didn't trade Josh Uche. They didn't go out there and trade anybody, Kyle Duggar, anyone that they respect in the building. They didn't let go of anyone, so clearly there was no real need to feel like they're a seller. The opposite could be said about Washington. You think about the coaching mismatches that go on in this game between Jack Del Rio and Bill O'Brien, or Bill Belichick and the Washington Ron Rivera, or even Eric Bieniemy, who I think gets a little too pass happy for his liking. I think Eric Bieniemy, clearly Belichick has had good plans against his Chiefs teams in the past. So there's just a lot that I like about this matchup. New England as a favorite at home. New England playing a team that maybe looked better than they are because they just play the Eagles well. Washington being a seller, their attitude being a little bit negative, playing a team in New England that I just feel like has played a lot of good teams that are better than them. They've lost to the Eagles. They lost to the Saints. They lost to the Dolphins. They lost to the Cowboys. They lost to the Dolphins twice, right? They beat the Bills. So they've just played better teams, and they've lost to those teams. There's no shame in that. They actually did beat the Jets. They did beat the Bills. The only bad team they lost to was the Raiders on the road. So New England's played tougher competition. New England, to me, has the biggest mismatch. New England has the coaching edge. New England is the more motivated team. I'd say this is a good spot to back the Patriots -3 at home. My third best bet for Week 9 is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers getting a field goal on the road at the Houston Texans. I like this spot for the Tampa Bay Bucs, and I like this opponent. I feel like the Texans have come back down to earth. They just lost to the Panthers. And you would say, well, Mitch, that's probably a spot to back the Texans now. Everyone's going to be down on the Texans. But I think a lot of people are equally down on the Bucs. You look at who the Bucs have played as of late and who they've lost to. They lost to the Eagles. They lost to the Bills. They lost to the Lions. Okay, yeah, we thought they would lose to those teams. But pretty much every other opponent they have beaten. You know, teams like the Saints or the Vikings, right? They beat those teams. They did lose to the Falcons in a tight one at home, but the Falcons, I would also say, are a better team than the Houston Texans. I feel like when you look at the Texans, this is a team that shocked some people early on because of how good CJ Stroud was and the offensive changes they have made. And I think a lot of people were taken off guard across the NFL. But now defenses have started to catch up. Even the Carolina Panthers defense, that's been atrocious since they've lost some of their key pieces. Tampa Bay is an elite defense right now, or at least a top 10 unit. And this is Todd Bowles, a coordinator that has a perfect scheme to confuse young quarterbacks. He likes to blitz a lot. He likes to send extra people. He likes to show very confusing looks at the line of scrimmage. Who's coming? Who's dropping? That's the type of defense that, studying CJ Stroud and being a fan of CJ Stroud, I thought he should have been the first pick in the draft. He is a guy that does typically struggle with that type of look where guys will drop back from the defensive end position or the linebacker position will blitz, and that will confuse CJ in his tight window throws and his quick reads. And oftentimes he can throw into coverage. I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Shaq Barrett got an interception this week. Those are the type of things that CJ struggled with in college. I could see him struggling with that this week. Also, the Texans are not a good run team, and Vita Vea should be back for the Bucs, which will definitely ensure that the Bucs win the run defense battle, which will force CJ into a lot of those third downs where Bowles can set up his blitz packages and make life on the young quarterback very, very tough. On the other side of things, the Texans have a pretty average defense, and I do think that the Bucs have advantages at wide receiver versus their defensive backs. I do think that the Bucs have faced more vicious pass rushes. I think last week they played the Bills on the road, which is an overall better pass rush than the Texans. So I wouldn't be overly concerned about that. I just feel like the Bucs defense is going to win this game. And getting a field goal, it should be a lower scoring game. But I expect Baker, Evans, Godwin to make more plays in this matchup. A veteran team that I think is long-term going to stick around in the playoff race more so than a young team going through a lot of growing pains, which is the Texans. So I think the Bucs win this game outright. I would take the field goal on the road. My fourth best bet versus the spread is Sunday Night Football, and this is my favorite bet of the week. It's the Cincinnati Bengals -2. I've seen 3s pop up, I've seen 2.5s, and now I've seen 2s. So I would take the 2 where you can get it. Certainly a much more valuable number to be backing the Bengals than 2.5 or definitely 3. But I love this game. I mean, there's nothing I don't love about this game. Cincinnati is 100% back. If you didn't watch that Niners game, let me tell you, firsthand experience, the Bengals are back. And the Niners, yeah, they're in a little bit of a slump, but that was a lot more about the Bengals, in my opinion, than the Niners. Joe Burrow was running, scrambling, extending plays, throwing accurate dimes down the field. They implemented run game from under center, run game from the shotgun, play action from under center, which is something they haven't really utilized all year. And when you look at the matchup against Buffalo's defense, it's basically a worse version of the Niners. They rely on their 4-man rush. They don't have a great secondary. Their linebackers are meant to be cover guys, but they lost Matt Milano, right? And they're just not the same defense. New England shredded the Bills a couple weeks back with a very similar approach to the way that the Bengals are now playing, which is Burrow gets the ball out quick, whether that's a play action under center or a screen, or it's just quick little empty formation, spread formations where he reads the coverage, bam, little hitch route to Chase, he gets some yards after the catch, or a curl to Higgins, or a quick slant to Boyd, whatever it may be. This man is just dicing defenses up with underneath patterns all day long. And then when you try to get in their face, which is what the Bills can't do because they can't play man coverage, they're going to get torched down the field by Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. So there's just bad matchups for the Bills, even if Rasul Douglas plays in this game, which I'm not sure that he will because he just got added. And then you look at the Buffalo run defense, which overall has been pretty leaky all year long. I feel like the Bengals run game looked the best it's looked all year against the Niners. I feel like they can run it from out of the gun. Mixon looked really good last week. I could see them just going up and down the field all day long against this Bills defense and really pacing the game and then getting out in front, which is where you want to be against the Bills because they get a little bit too panicky. Josh Allen starts to force the ball a little bit too much, and they start to get away from the run game, which exposes their offensive line. I think the Bengals' defensive line will take advantage of the Bills' offensive line, which in moments has not been great, especially on the inside where guys like DJ Reader and BJ Hill could have a big impact. We've seen what Trey Hendrickson can do. Love the linebackers for the Bengals, which are essential to playing the Bills because you need to have guys athletic enough to chase down Josh Allen, but good enough in coverage to have range. Wilson and Pratt both have that, and they both had interceptions last week. And the corners for the Bengals, I think, are the best they've been in a long time. I mean, I really like Cam Taylor-Britt and the way he's playing this year. I wouldn't be overly concerned with Awuzie versus Stephon Diggs. I just feel like the Bengals are the much better team. I think the Bills are completely overrated. They are a quarterback, and that's about it. And I think the Bengals are a really elite team, and they're playing at home where they've been really good on defense. They only allowed like 13 points to the Seahawks and 16 points to the Rams, Stafford and Geno and those units. So I could see them holding Allen below 20 like they did in the playoffs. Remember, this team beat the Bills last year basically twice. One was half a game, and then the second time was in Buffalo, in the snow, in the playoffs, 27-10. I just think the Bengals are a great matchup for the Bills with Big Lou scheming the defense and Joe Burrow running the offense. I love the Bengals this week. This might be one of my biggest bets of the season. So, yeah, riding with the Bengals. Monday Night Football is my final bet. I am taking the New York Jets, Jets, and Zach Wilson season as an underdog at home +3. Fundamental bet here. Chargers coming off a big impressive win against Chicago on Sunday Night Football at home where they played a really bad team. And I was wrong about that handicap. I'm not going to lie. The only reason I took the Bears there is because I just wanted to fade Brandon Staley. And I'm not going to lie. It was maybe a little bit dumb on my end. And I'll take that one on the chin. But this week, it's a totally different matchup. You've got the Jets at home on Monday night. The Jets against good quarterbacks this year have been superb. They shut down Josh Allen. They shut down Jalen Hurts. They shut down Patrick Mahomes. In all games, they've been unbelievable. And now they play another good quarterback in Justin Herbert that has a limited run game. So I don't think they're really going to run all over the Jets here. And I do believe that the Jets defense is going to get a pass rush on Herbert. We've seen him be affected by the Cowboys rushing the quarterback. We've seen him be affected by the Chiefs defensive line as well. I think the Jets will get a similar rush. I love the matchups for their corners in this game. Really only Keenan Allen scares me in this matchup. So I just love the Jets at home with that energy from the crowd in a primetime spot against a good quarterback where they know they have to rise up. And this team feels a lot like the Mark Sanchez, Rex Ryan teams where they are not pretty, but the defense just comes to play in these games. And then on the other side, Zach Wilson will make a couple plays Like, it's not going to be anything special, but they'll run the ball. He'll make a couple plays. He hasn't been turning it over, and he's playing one of the worst defenses in the NFL this year in the LA Chargers at home. So I really like the Jets here. I don't think they should be underdogs of a full field goal. This will be a gritty, grinded out game that I think might very well go the Jets' way. You're talking about a West Coast team going East Coast. I think Brandon Staley is one of the worst coaches in football. I like this matchup for the Jets, and I think they might surprise a lot of people by winning this game outright. So give me the Jets on Monday Night Football at home. Let's ride Zach Wilson. Let's go. Those are my best bets for week number 9. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, Gronk, spike the like button and subscribe. If you're wondering where you can get all of my bets and more exclusive BLV content, Patreon, link in the description, guys. Starts at only $3 a month to get my bets every single week for the NFL. Thanks for watching. It's Mitch. Peace.